Today I decided to 100% speedrun Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's entire Pokedex, and this was a terrible idea for my health. Now the speedrun started out on Scarlet, where we quickly change a few settings like faster text speed and sending Pokemon to the boxes automatically. Then we go through the whole intro sequence with our mom and director Clive until finally we get to choose our starter Pokemon, and we'll be going with Fuecoco for a cool strat we'll do much later in the run. That means we fight our rival Nemona's Sprigatito to start out, and it's an easy win with a few embers. From here we get the catching tutorial where we throw a Pokeball at a Lechonk, getting our second Pokedex entry. Then once we're free, we can go right up on a ledge to get a rare candy and catch the 4 other Pokemon in this first area: Hoppip, Fletchling, Scatterbug, and Tarantula. Then it's time to go through the whole sequence of meeting Koraidon and feeding them a sandwich, then slowly following them through a cave while they protect us from stronger Pokemon. This cave is also a convenient time to get a Yungoos and Diglett, but after that, it's the normal scripted stuff where we get attacked by a level 40 Houndoom but can't do anything. Koraidon saves us and we get to safety. But someone who isn't happy with that is this kid Arvin, who has Koraidon's Pokeball and is the son of Paldea's professor. He gets mad at us since Koraidon somehow got out of their battle form and decides to test our worthiness to keep them with a battle. But it's not too much of a challenge since he only has a Squovan, and 2 Embers results in a really easy win. So yeah, now we have Koraidon, though we won't be able to use them in battle for a while. And finally, the game lets us go free and catch a bunch of Pokemon in the South Province Area 1. Now since there are so many Pokemon to catch in this speedrun, I'm not going to go through every single catch, but we'll focus on the more important ones. Here, we want to get up to at least 16 Pokedex entries for a reason I'll explain later, and I especially want a Ralts, Bonsly, and Pichu since there aren't too many in other places, and we like to get them out of the way. We also really want to find a Bonsweet since that's an annoying catch with how rare it shows up, but we didn't get lucky this time, and I decided to worry about it later. I get up to a total of 20 Pokemon though, which is really good, and now it's time for our next Nemona battle, which we'll completely throw. See, Nemona multiple times throughout the game wants to test our strength, but these battles take way too much time since she talks a lot during them and continually gets more and more Pokemon. So for most of them, we'll just bring a weak Pokemon like our Yungoos and die in a single hit. I kind of feel bad since she really loves her battles, but eventually we'll give her a good one. Thankfully, you don't need to win these battles, so we move on to Mesagoza, where Nemona goes ahead of us to grab a Terra Orb, which lets us terrastalize. Then while we're exploring the city, we meet Team Star, this game's villain group, who are ganging up against a girl named Penny. So we come in and challenge them to some battles, beating them very easily with Fuecoco since these are just early game battles and there's not too much difficulty yet. Now it's the school section of the game, which is pretty much Mash A simulator to get through text, but throughout this we'll get 3 paths that we can take with different objectives once the school's treasure hunt begins. First we have Arvin with the Path of Legends, who wants us to find 5 Herbamysticas to make some really good sandwiches that can heal illness, but we need to fight huge Titan Pokemon to get them. Then we have Nemona, who wants us to take on 8 gyms before beating the Elite Four to become a Pokemon champion for the Victory Road path. Next up we meet Professor Sada, who doesn't give us a path, but basically asks us to take care of Koraidon since she put her son Arvin in charge of them, and we saw how that worked out. And finally we have Cassiopeia, who wants us to take down 5 Team Star bases throughout the region in the path Starfall Street. Now we're going to do all 3 of these, but we need to start out with getting a powerful Pokemon. So we can head over to Los Platos with Koraidon, who we can ride now, and we want to get up to the South Province Area 5. Usually you wouldn't be able to get here until you get access to a higher jump or climbing with Koraidon, but if we repeatedly jump backwards, you can get up ledges as long as they aren't too steep, and we'll be using this a lot in the early game. Then from here we want to pick up a couple items like a Quick Ball, Ultra Ball, and 2 rare candies, and we can make our way over to this marsh area where we want to catch a Flamigo. What we can do here is Backstrike 1, which doubles our catch rate on a Pokemon, and then use a Quick Ball to always get the catch. We'll almost always want to Backstrike Pokemon, by the way, for the increased catch rate, and it even works on a lot more powerful Pokemon, so we don't need to damage them first to actually get the catch. Then while we're here, I also got a Wooper, opened our Pokedex awards to get some free Great Balls since we collected more than 20 Pokemon, and that's why we wanted to get so many before the school section, and I also got a Choodle. Now before we leave here, we'll grab an XP Candy Large from the nearby beach, use it on Flamigo to get him up to level 26, and teach him Low Kick. So Flamigo is going to be our main damage dealer going forward, but it's time to go to Mesagoza East Fly Point and go towards our first Titan Pokemon fight. While moving, by the way, we'll pick up tons of items that aren't too out of the way, but I won't be going over everything since there's just way too much, and instead we'll mostly focus on the important stuff, just like for the Pokemon catches. Like these 2 rare candies we'll pick up here, one from falling off a cliff to grab it, and one that's just on another cliff sitting there. Now last thing before Titan Cloth is this tower. We want to climb up it because there's a Gimmighoul here. This Pokemon is unique in that it will only evolve once we collect 999 on Gimmighoul coins, which you can get by defeating or catching them. We'll defeat this first one, which gives us 60 coins, and we'll keep getting more of these guys throughout the run. But finally, it's time for Titan Cloth, which has two parts of the fight. First, we fight it alone, and a low kick is a really easy way to win since we're overleveled, and then it runs away and eats one of the Herbamysticas, making it stronger, where Arven comes to help. Still another easy win, and oh, by the way, another important thing is we always want extra Pokemon in our party since they get experience even if Flamigo does all the work. Like right here, we got our Spewpa to evolve into Vivillon. Now it's time for the Arven cutscene where he makes a sandwich, Koraidon eats it, and gains a new ability, this time being the ability to sprint, so that's pretty nice for going fast. Next up, we're going to do some backwards jumps up to the higher part of East Province Area 1, and here we can get our first Wo-Chien stake. There are 4 legendaries in this game that you can only fight once you found all 8 of their stakes, so we'll periodically do this whenever it's convenient. Then we'll backwards jump up some more steep hills and get to this grassy area where you can catch Applin. We want 2 of these little guys since they have 2 different evolutions with certain items, both of which we'll worry about later. For now, we're mainly focusing on getting our Flamigo stronger with XP candies, so we'll get a rare candy before this waterfall right by Zapapico, then we can grab some candies to the west by a tree, and a few on this small mountain by doing backwards jumps to traverse it. There's also conveniently the TM for acrobatics here, which will be nice later, and we'll keep going west to get another XP candy L, which we can feed to Flamigo to get him to level 39 before we teach him acrobatics over Detect for a more powerful flying type move, and then we'll defeat another Gimmighoul and some ruins for some more coins. Now we'll head a bit northeast to grab a few more candies on our way to the Glaciato Mountain, where all the ice Pokemon in the game spawn, and there's also 2 gyms here. We'll want to get fast travel points to those gyms now, so we'll make our way over to Glaciato first, which has the ice gym. Then before traveling to the other city of Monte de Vera, we'll go down the mountain to the east to get some more XP candies, along with stopping by the Pokemon Center in North Province Area 1 for another fast travel point. After that, we'll fly back to Glaciato and hit Monte Nevera with the Ghost Gym before heading to the west for some more candies and the Glaciato Mountain Pokemon Center fast travel point. Don't worry, I promise we're almost back to playing Pokemon instead of running all over the place. Because lastly, we're flying back to Zapapico in East Province Area 3, where we'll use all our XP candies to get Flamigo to level 57. We'll want to save our rare candies though, since it's more valuable to save them for when Flamigo is a higher level, since as we increase Flamigo's levels, they take more and more XP to increase further. And we'll be making our way over to our next Titan, picking up a couple more rare candies on the way. There's really so many of these, but this Titan fight is against Orthworm, and we are way over leveled at this point, so yeah, it's not bad at all. We finish part 1 easily, and then take a break to climb a nearby tower and get 50 more Gimmighoul coins. Then fight 2 is another low kick, and it's another very easy win. Now this time with Arven, we learned that he's doing this because the Mabostiff he's had with him since he was a kid is super sick, and he hopes to heal him with all the Herbamysticas we're collecting. It also seems to be working as Mabostiff is getting a little bit better with each sandwich, and this story is definitely one of my favorites in the game. This story also really makes me emotional because this was actually the last speedrun I did while my cat was still alive, Reese's. She always sat on the chair that was like right in my office, and then she'd always just be chilling there as I was doing this speedrun, even waiting for the really long ones like this. And I love her a lot. I mean, she was my cat that I've had for the past 15 years. She lived to the age of 19, which is amazing, but I just want to say I really miss you, Reese's, and I really love you. Sorry if that came out of nowhere. It just felt like I wanted to do it, you know? Anyways, on a bit of a happier note, we also get the access to a higher jump with Koraidon after this mission, so that's pretty nice, and now it's time to take on our first gym. We'll want to fly over to the tower in South Province Area 3 and make our way northeast to Artisan. Of course, picking up a few more candies on the way, and also catching a cloth since this is the most convenient spot. Then since it was nighttime, this is a good chance to get a few Pokemon that will only spawn during nighttime, like this Shuppet, while picking up any other random Pokemon around here too, since might as well. After a few catches, we'll go and get our second Wo-Chien stake on top of this cliff by the Pokemon Center and go to challenge the gym. Now before you challenge each gym leader, you always need to do a gym test first, which can be a lot of different things. This one was to find 10 Synflora throughout the city and get them to follow us, which yeah, not too much to explain. But once we get it done, it's time to fight Brassius, the grass trainer. Now something important to mention here while we destroy his Pokemon is I actually actually boxed all my other mons before this fight. This is because unfortunately, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet don't have the set game mode, and instead you're always on shift mode, which gives you the opportunity to switch your Pokemon after you defeat one of your opponents. For most fights and wild catches, this doesn't matter, but for gym fights, it's much faster to only have one Pokemon, so the game doesn't ask you if you'd like to switch Pokemon over and over, wasting time. For certain higher level fights, I'll still bring more Pokemon just because the experience will be worth it, but for Brassius, I mean his highest level Pokemon is 17, so not worth the time loss. But either way, that's our first gym badge. Next up, we're heading northeast towards Levincia, making sure to get some more Gimmighoul coins from another tower on the way. Then we can drop down to this beach area where there's a rare candy on this island and a couple Pokemon we specifically want, these being Marini and Pinchurin, which were both pretty easy catches using our backstrike strategies. Now once we're in Levincia, we want to grab a rare candy someone must have accidentally left after having lunch and trade our Pinchurin over to this person in the center of the city. In return, they give us a Haunter, which is perfect since this is one of the Pokemon that can only evolve after being traded, giving us 2 Pokedex entries in one. Then it's gym time, and for this test we need to play Where's Waldo with Director Clive. Yeah, he goes around hiding in random spots throughout the map, and we need to find him since this gym leader is a streamer and our viewers really like us playing this game. And every time we find our director, we have a fight with some gym trainers, but our low kicks are incredibly easy wins against them. Finally, when it's time to fight gym leader Iona, she has electric types which go down very easily to our overleveled bird, making that gym badge number 2. From here, we're flying to the Glaciato Mountains Poke Center, and we'll go a bit west to another tower with another Gimmighoul kill. Then we'll want to fast travel back to the Glaciato Mountain Center and go south on a really weird path. We want to go up this cliff, and there's some very awkward backwards jumps to the upper path. I also kinda got stuck for a minute at this spot since Koraidon couldn't swim yet, but finally we were able to make it over this small cliff, and then a bit more south we find our first Ting Lu stake. After that, we're heading west to Medali, where our next gym fight is, but before that, we get Nemona asking to battle us again, only for us to disappoint her yet again by only bringing a young goose. I wonder if she realizes yet how much we're throwing. Then we go over to the Treasure Eatery, because this gym challenge is where you want to find out what the locals order at the restaurant by talking to other trainers taking the test. But we don't need to do that since the answer never changes, and we just do grilled rice balls, medium portion size, fire blast heat, and a lemon on top. This murders a bunch of people sitting at the restaurant. Unlucky for them, but we get to fight Larry. He's the normal type gym leader, but we can just spam some wing attacks since we're too overleveled. I really like this part though, where everyone gets hyped up for Larry terastallizing his final Pokemon, only for us to take them out in a single hit. Sorry Larry, but that's badge 3. Now to the west of the city, there's a bunch of more catches we can do, so might as well get some more Pokemon while we're here. I also bought some Great Balls since our randomly collected Pokeballs were slowly running out, and these can hold us off for the next while for most Pokemon. It was nighttime too, so we got some more night Pokemon like Driflooms, but the only really important one to make sure we catch here is Lilligant, since it will always be in this spot. Some Pokemon are specifically static and will always be in a certain spot, so that's nice for us every once in a while when this happens. This catch was giving us a bit of trouble though, since some Pokemon have a lower catch rate, and we needed to damage her a bit, but we got her eventually. That is kind of a problem for us, by the way, for this run. Since our Flamigo is so overleveled, we can't damage most Pokemon with it, and we need to rely on backstrikes to carry us, or just hope we have a Pokemon that's around the same level as the one we're trying to catch, that way we can do some damage. Now we'll backwards jump up some cliffs to get to Cast Carafa, which has the water type gym, where as soon as we try to enter, the gym leader Kofu runs out to go to an auction, but forgets his wallet. So his worker asks us to give it to him for a gym test. Not sure why you would trust a random person like this, but fair enough I guess. Kofu will need to wait a bit before getting his wallet though, since I went behind the gym to grab this Chiem Pao stake before flying to Messagoza West. Here we'll want to pick up some Nest Balls, which are more effective at catching lower level Pokemon, and that's good for us since we're going to the beginner spot of the game, South Province area too. So with these balls, we picked up a few lower level mons like Smoliv and Sunkern, and got our next tower instead of Gimmighoul coins, before finally picking up this Adamant Mint to raise the attack of our Flamigo later on. But it's Cortando gym time, and this gym test is the olive roll. We'll need to bring a gigantic olive over to a basket, and with the weird physics of our Koraidon, we can actually hit it over the gates gates easily to bypass pretty much the entire maze, but we'll be coming back for the actual gym fight later, since for now, it's Bombardier Titan time. And this is just as easy as all our recent battles, since 2 wing attacks get it done super fast, and now Mablestiff was able to bark, and Koraidon obtained the ability to swim. Then we finally use some rare candies on Flamigo to get him to level 80, and our Adamant Mint to increase our attack, before conveniently right over to the north is another Titan battle, this time against Great Tusk. But of course, this is another 2-hit Titan, giving us yet another quick win, and Koraidon gains the ability to glide in the air, meaning we only have 1 part left for the Path of Legends. Though it will be a little bit before we get to that, since it's time to go to Porto Marinata, where the water gym leader is at for the auction. And while trying to give him his wallet, his gym trainer blocks us, basically saying he's too important to talk to us. So we destroy this dude with some wing attacks, and then Kofu finally notices us, thanks us for bringing him his wallet, and tells us to finish our gym challenge, we need to win an auction for some seaweed. He also gives us $50,000, and the easiest way to win this is not bidding at first, and then bidding $35,000, which results in the other people giving up, and we win the item while also pocketing the extra $15,000. Kofu finally says we can do his gym fight, but we'll go there later on. For now, we're flying to the ice gym on Glaciato Mountain. For the test, we need to ride Koraidon down the mountain fairly quickly, hitting some checkpoints along the way, which is super easy when you know what you're doing. And then the gym fight isn't too much harder, since we just do a bunch of acrobatics, and we're halfway through the gyms. But at this point, we're gonna finish out the Titans by heading over to Casa Royal Lake. Here we can find a Tatsugiri, and when we talk to it, a Dondozo comes out to battle. This guy is pretty strong and actually takes 2 attacks instead of just 1. Then for part 2, we do 2 more low kicks on the Dondozo, followed by a battle with the Tatsugiri that the Dondozo ate. And for this little guy, we'll use acrobatics twice, since low kick is better on heavier Pokemon, which means finally Mablestiff gets fully healed, Koraidon gains the ability to climb, and Arvin's mom, Professor Sada, asks us to come to the lighthouse that we met Arvin at for one last mission, but we'll worry about that much later in the run. Right now, we'll grab the 2 Ting-Lu stakes at the lake, one on Titan Island and one a bit south of it, and head over to the Bug Jib in Cortando. And for this fight, we're actually going to switch out our Flamigo for Croccollar. We saved our starter from leveling up past 19. That way, he was the perfect level to defeat Gym Leader Katie with a few embers, which is also why we chose Fuecoco at the beginning of the run. And that's because now after the fight, Nemona wants us to battle her again, and this time the top champion Gita is gonna watch since Nemona vouches for us. The game doesn't give us any time to switch Pokemon before this fight, which is why we wanted to use Croccollar, and then we get embarrassed in front of the champion by yet again dying in 1 hit. This speedrun is so funny. Gita lies though and says we have a lot of potential, and then it's time to make our way over to the water gym and cast Farafa, switching back to our Flamigo of course, which is another easy win with a few wing attacks, meaning 2 more gym battles to go. So we'll fly back to Cortando and buy around 30 quick balls to last us to the next shopping segment. You can only get quick balls once you have 6 gym badges by the way, and when combined with a backstrike, these are the most efficient way to catch most Pokemon. Now we're going southeast to Alfrenada and the Psychic Gym, picking up some more rare candies and this Chien Pao steak on the way by this waterfall. We also grabbed a ton more catches in both South Province Area 4 and Area 6, with Area 6 being where Pokemon are finally starting to get strong. We'll commonly see them around level 40 here, so backstrikes are very critical to make sure we're more likely to catch them. Evolved forms of Pokemon are also less likely to catch than pre-evolved forms, so sometimes it can be worth it to catch the pre-evolved form and then just evolve them later, but if it's convenient, I like to catch as much as possible. There's also a ruins by the town with a bunch of Bronzong, and this is a great chance to use Go Mode to grab some Bronzor fragments, since we'll need them later to evolve Charcadet. But after a ton of catching, it's time to head to the gym where Nemona wants to fight again, and we're just bringing a Yungoos. So another easy loss, but thankfully for her, this is our last fight I'll be throwing, so at least there's that. Now on the gym test, we need to do an emotional exam where we match our emotions with the instructors. To go as fast as possible, for the first round we'll just do 2 of them, and then not press anything for the next 8. And then for the second round we'll do 5, since every time you do an emotion, it pauses the timer. And after a couple easy gym trainer battles, it's on to our fight with Tulip, which isn't too much harder. You already know we're over leveled, so it's 1-hit KOs all the way. And finally we get on to my favorite part of the speedrun, the catching part, since all Pokeballs we want are available for sale. We'll sell a bunch of our extra items like TMs, and then stock up on Quick Balls and Dusk Balls. The Dusk Balls are nice for nighttime or in caves, since they become really effective there. Then it's time to catch a huge list of Pokemon in this area. By the way, good time to mention, the guide I'm using for this run is made by the speedrunner Shenanigans, who also to my knowledge, has world record in this category, so shout out to him, and also shout out to the channel Techno Trainer, who makes really quick guides on where every Pokemon is in this game for any of the mons I was unsure about. And one specific important mon we want to catch is in the cave next to Alfrenata, and it's this Terra Umbreon. Certain Pokemon always have a Terra version of themselves somewhere throughout the map, so for mons like Umbreon, if we don't find them naturally, we can always just get them in their Terra spot. This list includes all the evolutions, by the way, which is nice because we don't have to worry about raising a bunch of Eevees and evolving them. Next up, we'll fly back to our house, and since Koraidon can swim, we can jump down to get a Wingull and Magikarp. Then we'll fly to Levincia North Pokemart and use our money at the Delibird shop, where you can buy a bunch of evolution items and other important things. Here we'll want to grab 3 Firestones, 4 Thunderstones, 1 Sweet Apple, 1 Tart Apple, 1 Soothe Bell, and 2 Bottle Caps. We won't end up actually using all these items, by the way, but we're picking up what we would need if we don't catch things naturally, and they're just good to have to make sure if we get the worst RNG possible. Then we can go north to this mountain in East Province Area 3, where we'll grab a few more random catches as we see them, but more important, we'll grab this Chi-Yu steak at the top. Then we're fast traveling back to Glaciado Mountain, where it's time to go for ice Pokemon. There's a ton of different ice Pokemon on this mountain, and honestly, you kind of just go off vibes and catch them all. I just have a general idea of what to get in my mind as we go northeast towards this next tower with another Gimmighoul, and that's another 60 coins. And below the tower, there will always be a Weavile here, which is the perfect chance to catch it, along with some more mountain Pokemon around the area that we get as we please. Now after we're fully down the mountain, we want to head north towards another Chi-Yu steak on this mountain before also killing 1 Gimmighoul in some nearby ruins and 1 in a tower in the middle of a lake. After that, we'll hit the ocean, where there's a bunch more mons we can catch, and you probably see why I love this part of the run so much. By far, my favorite part of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is catching Pokemon. It's just such an addicting loop of going from one catch to the next, and why I honestly really like these games, especially on the Switch too, where the frame rate is finally fixed. Important mons here though are just Scraup and Wiglet, along with grabbing 1 more Chi-Yu steak on a cliff by the beach. And next up, we're gonna start making our way over to the fighting base for the Team Star mission. Yeah, you probably thought I forgot about these, but we were just saving them since they aren't as important as stuff like upgrading Koraidon. This base is southeast over at North Province Area 2 and has a convenient Poke Center right by it that we can get for fast travel since we aren't actually doing this Team Star base just yet. We will take this Chi-Yu steak right next to the center though and grab a couple rare candies before flying back up to the mountain. This time we'll head straight south, and conveniently there will be some ruins that always have a Spiritomb. Spiritomb also moves really sadly, by the way. Look how much he struggles, but at least he can enjoy his new life in a storage box. Then even a bit farther south is our next Chi-Yu steak right next to the Poison Team Star base, which this one will actually do. Now these missions always start out with a Pokemon battle against one of the Team Star's members or friends, which we easily beat. After that, we talk to Clive, a hip young student who definitely is not someone else in disguise and is helping us with our Team Star missions by offering support. He lets us know to defeat these bases, first we need to do these star battles where we send out the first 3 Pokemon in our team to attack opponents, and we need to beat 30 rival Pokemon within 10 minutes. This is super easy and always gets done in less than 2 minutes, and then it's time to fight that base's boss, and this one is Atticus. These boss fights are just a regular fight against a few different Pokemon, with the final one always being a huge Reverie that they're standing on, but easy enough to beat them up with Flamigo, and that's base 1 done. Now Cassiopeia congratulates us and gives us some LP, and Penny comes by saying she's working with Cassiopeia and gives us some materials. But after all that spamming A, it's catching time again, and there's plenty more Pokemon to find in the forest. Big ones here are Pinecos, which always hide in trees and are kind of hard to find, and Zoruas, who disguise themselves as other Pokemon. So the best way to find them is targeting Pokemon that you already have in your Pokedex, and if their name shows up as question marks, that's a Zorua that we can catch. Finally in this area, we'll grab another Chi-Yu steak up on a cliff and the Terra Espeon near the East Province Area 3. This guy will always be in a cave over at the mines section, so it's a very convenient place to get another evolution out of the way. Next up, we're flying over to Artisan, where the Team Star Fire base is, picking up a Cyclizer on the way. This base has the exact same process as the last one, so not too much to explain, and right after that, we'll hit up the Dark base by Cascarafa, which is also very easy stuff, meaning that's 3 out of 5 bases done. Then after the Dark base, we can pick up 2 more close by Chien Pao steaks before going back to Monte Nevera, where it's time for our very last gym. But before the gym, we gotta make our Flamigo even stronger. stronger. So we'll head over to this dude with an Abomasnow, who will hyper train your Pokemon for bottle caps, which increases the stats IVs to their maximum value. So basically, we make our speed and attack as good as possible. Then we'll also grab 5 Carbos and 5 proteins from a nearby shop to make our attack and speed even better, and put a Hawlucha in our secondary slot since it's time for double battles. Unfortunately, I was supposed to get a second Acrobatics TM for Hawlucha to be a bit faster, but forgot, and that makes our fights go a bit slower, since if you don't defeat the gym trainers in the first turn, you get some extra dialogue. Still, not too big of a deal, and we eventually got to the gym leader Rhyme, who we easily defeated, and it felt like I really had the world champ difference, though my world champ difference is overleveled Pokemon instead of skill, but I'll still take it. That means gym battles are done, and we're primed for the Elite Four later in the run. Before that though, we'll finish out by getting the remaining ice Pokemon we need from the mountain, in particular this Glaceon, who's another Terra evolution, and then we can head over to the fighting Team Star base. And like all these Team Star bases, we easily win, so just one more to go. But more interestingly, here we have a bunch more Pokemon we want to specifically catch in this nearby forest, and in my opinion, the coolest one is Bisharp, since we want to specifically catch one that's surrounded by multiple Pawniards. This is because Bisharps that lead a group of Pawniards carry the Leader's Crest item that's necessary to evolve it. But before doing that, we need to defeat 3 other Bisharps with their own Leader's Crest. Easiest way to do this is by making the TM Brick Break and giving it to our Bisharp, that way we can take out the others with a super effective move. Then after beating 3 of them, we can use our rare candy and evolve our boy into a new Pokemon to this game, King Gambit. Now after doing all that, we'll want to make sure we get one of these Caparahas, which is a 100% catch with a Backstrike, and a Sunflora, who's pretty much always an easy catch, and also grab the last Chi-Yu stakes close by, with the last one being up on this mountain. And this spot's great because right below the stake, there's a cave which has Chi-Yu, our very first legendary Pokemon. Unfortunately though, you can't Backstrike this Pokemon, and they have a super low catch rate, so we actually need to play it smart. What we'll do is start out the fight with a Flamigo low kick to get down Chi-Yu's health. Then we can switch to Spiritomb to try to use Memento to lower Chi-Yu's attack and special attack, only to die because of confusion. Still not the worst thing in the world, because we can switch to Luxray to get an Intimidate down and use Thunder Wave, but our Luxray also got confused and also died, so yeah, this was going great. So I decided to max revive Luxray, since paralyzing Chi-Yu would be super helpful for a catch, and she finally got it off so we could repeatedly use timer balls till the Pokemon was caught. Timer balls are good for legendaries, by the way, since they get more effective the longer you're in a battle, and Chi-Yu took a very long time. Now before leaving the area, we want to get some more Gimmighoul coins over to the west before it's time to tackle our final Team Star base, the fairy one, all the way on the top of the map. And you know what that means, a lot more wing attacks and acrobatics spam, and that's the final base done. Also for the story, Cassiopeia reveals that they're actually the leader of Team Star, and we need to defeat them to end Team Star for good. But I'm not too worried about that, since there's tons of new Pokemon to worry about catching in this area, specifically this Terra Sylveon. Oh, by the way, this run is starting to get really satisfying, since every time we catch a new Pokemon, we get to see the Pokedex entries around it, and our Pokedex is getting more and more filled up, which just feels good. And before our next fly, we grab a quick Tinglu stake over to the west, before heading to Medali and catching a Vigoroth and Shroomish to the west of the city, before then going to Porta Marita. And just like Zora, we had a Ditto here who pretends to be other Pokemon, so we can use the question mark trick to find them. Then it's desert catching time, and there's tons of Pokemon specific to this region, so we go on another catching frenzy. The cool one though is this Great Tusk, who I believe is the Titan we fought earlier, so you actually need to talk to it instead of using a Backstrike. But it's nice because you usually wouldn't be able to get this guy till Area 0. Then we'll defeat 2 more Gimmighouls, one on top of a mountain and one in some ruins, before heading down to this huge cave section where there's a convenient Tinglu stake and another one right outside the cave. Now we'll head back to Porto Marinata and pick up some remaining Pokemon like Rotom here, and then we'll jump down into the water because there's all kinds of water Pokemon and all kinds of easy catches. Then it's time to go north to the left side of Casaroya Lake, where we can pick up our final 2 Tinglu stakes, and even more north, there's this forest area where Tinglu is hanging out. But before that fight, we'll want to make sure we get this cracked pot, which we can use to evolve Sinistea later on. For this fight, we'll start with Flamigo and some acrobatics for damage, and then we'll try some Ultra Balls for a few turns, until around turn 5, where I like to start up the timer balls. And before Flamigo fainted, we got a super quick catch, so I'll take it. Then also in this area, we'll want to pick up another Gimmighoul on top of the mountain above Tinglu, and we'll also get any Pokemon we don't already have from this area, like Raichu and this Terra Serena, who's another very convenient catch, like all these Terramons. Now before we hit the quest again, we'll go back to Zapapico and get some leftover Mons from this area, using a trick where we go outside of the city to spawn Pokemon, then back in to despawn them, and then we can keep doing that over and over. This gives us Torkoal, by the way. I love Torkoal ever since it was in the anime. What a good Pokemon. And we'll also pick up a Squawkbilly before going into the city to trade the Bronzor fragments we got earlier for Auspicious Armor, which we can use later to evolve our Charcadet. But that's enough catching for now, because we're going to be heading over to the school where it's time to meet Cassiopeia, and apparently this whole time Cassiopeia has been Clive, who's also Director Clavel. Crazy, right? So we gotta beat him in a fight where we just acrobatics his whole team, and it's an easy win. It was kinda fun though, because the Quaxly that neither us or Nemona chose has now evolved into a Coquavel, and Clavel is using them. Nice little detail. But it turns out after the fight, the director isn't actually Cassiopeia, he was just testing us, and the real one wants us to meet them in the school's courtyard, but I'll worry about that later, because for now, we're heading over to the Elite Four. This section starts out with a quiz where you have to make sure you're here for the right reasons, and I accidentally failed it by getting our school name wrong. Oops. But thankfully you can retake the test, and we got everything right this time around, so it's Elite Four time, and this whole part is really easy. First we have Rika with her ground type team, and we just low kick them all. Then for some reason they made a 9-year-old an Elite Four member whose name is Poppy, and she's got steel types which are very easy against our fighting type moves. Again, low kick. Third is Larry with his flying types, and we just use a bunch of acrobatics here. And fourth is Hassel with dragon types, which will actually use an X attack first, and then go for acrobatics and low kicks for the rest, just to ensure we get all one-hit KOs. And now for top champion Gita, she has all kinds of Pokemon, but we just spam either acrobatics, low kicks, or even a close combat depending on the situation, and we're officially a Pokemon champion. Which means Nemona is hyped up because she can finally battle someone at her full strength, and for once we won't be throwing. In normal gameplay, this fight is actually really fun and pretty tough, but with our overleveled Flamigo, of course we one-shot everything, but Nemona still loves it and is just happy we actually put up a fight for once. Now next up, we need to finish out the Team Star stuff, so we'll start with Cassiopeia in the schoolyard, and turns out the entire time it was Penny who started Team Star in response to a bunch of bullying around the campus. She has a really cool evolution team which starts out with Umbreon, and she also almost always begins with Baby Doll Eyes, so you really should use a guard spec to prevent the stat drop, but I got greedy after 10 hours of playing and thought maybe she wouldn't use it, so I just used an X attack. Yeah, bad decision. At least the guard spec after stopped the second one, but then we were able to one-shot everything else with low kicks and acrobatics, so it didn't really matter at the end of the day. After this is a bunch of mashing A through text, where Penny apologizes and explains the bullying story to Director Clavel and reunites with her friends. They get in trouble, but not too much trouble, and Penny just needs to help out the school with her tech skills since she hacked the LP system to give us some every time we beat a Team Star base, so everything went pretty well. But now for the last story part of the game, it's Arven time, where we go into the lighthouse and learns that his mom wants us to go to a place called Area Zero with Arven's Scarlet book. So we have a test battle with Arven to make sure we're prepared enough. And you know the drill, just a bunch of one-hit kills on Arven's Pokemon, but he says we're probably not strong enough to go on our own and need allies, so we recommend Nemona and Penny, which is why you need to complete their stories first, so these options are available. And while Arven goes to Area Zero to prepare, we got some time to kill because we want to wait until the start of a nighttime, and we were already deep in it, so we would need to wait a whole day cycle. Luckily, there's plenty to do before that, since we still got a lot of Pokemon to catch. First, I got another Gimmighoul by the lighthouse for some more coins, and we grabbed some nearby Chien Pao stakes on the mountains and Pokemon up here like Maschiff and Atena. We also hit another nearby tower in South Province Area 4 for some more Gimmighoul coins, and one in Area 6 where we finally actually caught the Gimmighoul. Then there was another Chien Pao stake right next to the tower, and another one to the north in this large cave system tunnel, before we flew to Cortando and went northwest to a stake on a mountain, and then even farther northwest to this stake on this really weird rock formation. So Wo-Chien was ready, and that means another legendary fight. For this one, we'll start out with Gyarados for an Intimidate, and then go for a Quick Ball, which didn't work, but worth the try. After that, we got a Hydro Pump off, which did a little damage, but with Gyarados dead, we could could switch to Luxray for another Intimidate. Unfortunately though, I completely forgot to heal my Luxray before this fight, meaning she died immediately before we could get a paralysis off, so I had to revive her and try again, giving us another Intimidate, and paralysis was actually up this time, along with a Volt switch to get Chien-Pao down to about half health. Now it was time to spam some timer balls, and we got the catch pretty soon after. And from here, just some more random catches for the next while, going to different areas depending on what Pokemon I was missing. We also beat our final Gimmighoul here in a tower at South Province Area 5, making that 999 coins, and also in this area is both where Seviper and Zangoose are. Those guys are always pretty annoying, so just thought I'd mention them. Now for an interesting evolution, we have Primeape, and to evolve her, we need to teach her Rage Fist, which she learns at level 35, and then we have to use the move 20 different times. So I just went through the beginning area, attacking all the weak little Pokemon, while also trying to find a Bond Suite because it eluded me at the beginning. After a bunch of Rage Fists, we could use some XP candy on Primeape, and that's our Annihilate done. Next up, I did some item evolutions like evolving our two Applins into Flapple and Appleton with the Tart and Sweet Apples we bought earlier. I then evolved the Eevee we caught into a Flareon since that's the one evolution I still needed, and I gave our Sinistea a cracked pot to make them a Poltergeist, evolved Gimmighoul, which since we had all those coins, became a Goldango, and evolved a Magnetone with a Thunderstone to become a Magnezone. Last interesting mons we needed was a Scarlet exclusive Lavatar, which could be found in the same cave we got that Chien-Pao steak earlier, and we still needed an Axew, and there's a convenient one to the east of Cascarafa in Terraform, so that was a nice pickup. And then something even more nice was it started raining here, which you need to evolve Sliggoo into Goodra, so I definitely took that as well. Now after a few more random catches, we made our way over to Area 0 for the final parts of Scarlet's story. And basically what happens here is the whole gang gets together, and Arvid's mom tells us we need to go through Area 0, hitting some buttons to remove the defense systems that are in place. She also talks really robotically and barely acknowledges Arvin, but I'm sure it's fine. And this is a super cool spot of the game where tons of powerful Pokemon are, but unfortunately, we can't ride Koraidon and need to walk slowly through the area while our friends talk to each other. And them talking is especially annoying since you can't aim a Pokeball while they're talking, so no backstrikes for us during these sections. And before each building we need to reach, we fight a special Area 0 Pokemon like this Glimmora with one of our friends, but we obviously one-shot them all. Then we'll hit a button, and that's spot 1 done, 3 more to go. But I won't bore you by explaining this whole part, and we'll focus on the catches, like how I was able to find a Volcarona here, along with a Farigiraf, Fluttermane, which by the way can only be found down here in caves during nighttime, and then also a Glimmora, Screamtail, and a Dunsparce. Now after making it to the bottom of Area 0, we open up the lab Professor Sada is in, and a bunch of Paradox Pokemon come out. Oh, by the way, these special Pokemon are called Paradox Pokemon since they came from the past in a time machine in Pokemon Scarlet, and they're from the future in Violet, and Koraidon is one of them. But for the actual fights, you already know it's a bunch of one-shots, and while our friends fend off the outside, we go in to meet Professor Sada, who's a robot, since the real one died while protecting our Koraidon from a Paradox Pokemon, and this AI was made to help the professor's research. There's also another Koraidon here, so that's pretty cool, and the AI Sada asks us to stop the time machine the original professor created using the Scarlet book Arvin gave us earlier. Unfortunately, when we do this, the AI Sada's programming will be overridden and she'll attack us, so this is the true final boss fight. And it's a pretty cool one since it's against all Paradox Pokemon. Now we'll start out with an Acrobatics on her Slitherwing, and then use an X attack into an Acrobatics on Screamtail since it doesn't do too much damage to us. Then we can one-shot all her remaining Pokemon, but the fight's not over just yet, since all our friends come in, and then the system locks our Pokeballs so only Pokemon that are registered to Sada's ID can come out. Thankfully that does include our Koraidon, so we finally bring them in to fight the other Koraidon. And this fight has a really funny strategy. It's very scripted where you're supposed to end with terastallizing and using a Terra Blast, but instead we can start with an X attack and use one flamethrower to get a bit of damage in before spamming Collision Course 4 times, saving us the whole animation of terastallizing. So we finally beat Sada, and she decides to go back in time with the time machine before it gets destroyed so she can get freedom. And that's the end. We all walk home and start a new adventure. But you already know the speedrun isn't over since we still got Pokemon to catch. We'll start by meeting up with Director Clavel, who gives us a Master Ball, and then it was clean up for all the leftover Pokemon we still still needed, and also our last legendary with their stakes. For Wo-Chien, there's one in South Province Area 3 on a hill. Oh, and then I also evolved our Charcadet with the Auspicious Armor, since I forgot to do that earlier. Then next stake was slightly south over by the water. Even more south, there's one on a huge mountain in Area 5, and one last one southeast, which was our very last stake. And since we have our Master Ball, this is the easiest catch of our lives. Next up, I needed to go to Area 0 to get the Paradox Pokemon that only unlock after beating the game. I teleported to Research Station 2 since it has a rocky area, and got a Brutbana in the grass, Slitherwing in the grass, and a Sandy Shocks on the rocks. Then we went to Research Station 3, where if you go straight forward, there's a secret cave in here that has a Roaring Moon for an easy catch with a Dusk Ball. And that's all the Paradox guys done, so now it was time to go to Alfornada. Here, there's a restaurant where we can buy this dish that I won't even try to say the name of, which increases our speed of getting eggs for any baby Pokemon we still need. So I was able to get Ditto, Slacking, and Gothitelle into my party so they can do their thing during a picnic. Then after waiting a bit, we had 3 eggs in our basket, so I went back to Mesagoza, where now we can bring out Palmo and Reller. Both of these Pokemon evolve when you walk 1,000 steps with them, and eggs also hatch after 1,000 steps, so we could use that to see when we should use XP candy on our walking Pokemon. And pretty soon I got a Slack off, and then another, and then another. Yeah, it turns out my Gothitelle got 0 eggs, which was really unlucky, but I was still able to evolve Palmo into Palmot, and then just do one more picnic, this time only with Gothitelle and Ditto. Finally, we got another egg, and this time took Reller out to walk with, giving us Gothita and Robska. So our last bit of grinding was just evolving our remaining Pokemon. And while we had some XP and rare candies to help with this, we would still need to do a bit of grinding. So what I did was go over to the fairy base and then make a regular ham sandwich. This increases normal type encounter power, and in this area, that results in tons of Chanseys and Blissies, which give us a lot of XP. So finally, after a bit more grinding, we got all our evolutions and had 368 Pokemon in our Pokedex, which is the max amount you can get in Pokemon Scarlet without trading anything to another console, and where most speedruns would end. But I decided, why do that when instead I could play through Violet and trade everything for my sister's Switch 2, so shout out to her, and that's just what I did. Now for this last part of the run, I did pause the timer a few times so I could sleep, and we finished the regular run already, but here's how the final many hours of the run went, just incredibly sped up. So first, we need to play Violet and get Quaxley, since you can only get 1 starter per game. So I needed to go through the entire tutorial to the first Poke Center, only to trade a single Pokemon and then start again from the beginning. But then it was time to actually play through Violet, this time with Sprigatito, and obviously using all the same Flamigo strats. And for the catches, we got a Gulpin early in South Province Area 3, Dreepy in the lake area, Misdreavus over at South Province Area 4 during night, the Charcadet we needed, and a Bagon in that one cave where the stake was, Passimian in Tag Tree Thicket, Ice-Q up above the fairy base, and Clauncher in the sea by Porto Marinata. By the way, I put Everstones on the Pokemon we needed to evolve so I could keep them in my party while we got up their levels, just so I could get them up to right before evolving, before switching them to my Scarlet save. Then I needed to do a bit of farming for Sinistea chips in the ruins area, that way we could trade for Malicious Armor and evolve our Charcadet into Ceruledge, and then made my way over to Area 0. Oh, another thing, after my 8th gym badge, I also traded my OG Flamigo to my Violet save since it was stronger and could make sure we never died or anything. Now onto Area 0, we got Iron Bundle and Iron Jugulus before beating the game, and then the rest after. They pretty much all spawned in the same types of areas as their counterparts did in Scarlet, so it was easy to find everyone. I also made sure to pick up the extra Koraidon with our Master Ball, since you can't trade over your main one, and it was finally time to actually do all the trades. And yeah, this just took a while. The more interesting ones are Scissor, which we needed to trade with a Metal Coat we got in Levincia, and we also needed to trade a Slowpoke with a King's Rock to make it a Slow King. But other than that, just a bunch of trades and Pokedex discoveries, and you already know I made sure to trade back our original Flamigo because I couldn't leave him behind like that. Now I just had a bit more level grinding to do back in Scarlet, and finally after more than 22 hours, that was every Pokedex entry in Scarlet done. But I thought it'd be a bit more ceremonious to end off with getting the Shiny Charm, so that's what I did with the final time of 22:13:56. And after, I realized maybe I should have actually ended off on this diploma instead, but either way, I was just happy I was done. No leaderboard for this crazy run. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Bye.